I was just playing sax. That's all. I mean, that was 100%. By the way, behind me is a lot of my pictures in my art studio. You can see Sanborn and the sunset and the band, and that's Mr. Bear, and that's my grandson Frankie. Anyway, here's my flute journey briefly. I was playing sax, and I had a Junker student flute lying around that I never practiced. I played a little bit in college, but kind of forgot about it. So I picked up the Junker flute with me, and we went over and played a gig at a restaurant. And the whole gig we're playing, whole time we're playing, learn how to do this. I mean, this is obviously something that's useful in a small duo or trio setting. So I started taking lessons, and I had my student flute, and I traded that in and got a little better one, and traded that in and got a little better one, and I've been chasing flute. But the point of all this is that I really didn't expect to be grabbed by flute. I mean, flute, I just started playing and I go, this is actually fun. I mean, saxophone I've been doing 40 years, so it's like something I can do. But flute was like, wow, I'm back in fourth grade. I'm learning stuff. So it was really cool. Anyway, here's the flute. This is a good flute. I just bought a student a flute for him. It was a Trevor James TJ10. I got it for 200 bucks. So there's decent flutes out there for beginners on eBay for 200, 250. So it's not hard. Don't go to your music store. They're going to charge you like 600 for a piece of junk. Get something decent and you can pay half of that and get a good flute. Anyway, here's your flute. It's made up of three parts, just like a body. It's got the head joint. This is where you make the tone. It's got the body of the flute, and then it's got the foot joint. So it's got all three of these. So if you were a student of mine, I'm going to show you how easy it is to play flute. Basically, the first thing you do is take your first finger, and blow a stream of air right on your fingertip. Go ahead and try that. See if you can do it for 4 counts. You have to make sure it's a like a cone stream, or you won't be able to do it. So try for 5. So you do that a few times. Now, without changing your head, I'm going to move my finger up and down, and I'm going to direct the air on the fingertip. So here it's on the fingertip, and I'm going to pull the finger down and direct the air down. So I'm staying, the air's on the fingertip, and I'm not moving my face or my jaw or anything else. Now it's going to go up and even higher. Just like that. So that's a useful tool that you're going to use when you're playing flute. Some people say playing flute's like blowing across a pop bottle and getting a sound, but other flute players don't like that. So basically, it's directing a stream of air up and down. So this is where you make the tone on the flute. Now, how easy is it? I've had some students it takes 6 months to get a tone. I've had some students take 2 minutes. So it varies from person to person. You put your hand over the end of the head joint, and I'm going to blow across this tone hole. This tone hole goes right underneath my lip. So it's right underneath my lip, and I'm blowing across it. If you can do that, you can get a sound on flute. And I'm like you. I don't sing well at all. I'm terrible. I'm not good. But I'm a real good sax player and I'm a decent flute player. So all the 60 songs that I want to sing along with, like Good Vibrations and all the Ranky Valley and the Four Seasons songs, I can't sing that, ooh, but I can play flute to it. And that's almost as much fun. I spend a lot of time on YouTube just figuring out songs for the convalescent people. I play for them Downtown and Somewhere Over the Rainbow and any kind of a song that might spark a memory. But anyway, so I'm just blowing into it and it's working for me. But the average flute player doesn't know how to do that. So they got to put this underneath their lip and put it too far out. Nothing. Put it too far in. Nothing. Put it to the side. So you experiment and you find where that spot is. Now, when you get good at that, you start experimenting with moving the air up a little bit to get the higher notes. So you're going, Now, normally with a student, I teach them tonguing even before they get the flute. So what they're doing is you're going ta, 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 which separates the notes just a little bit. So I'm going ta, 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 ta while I blow. So it's one stream of air being separated. It's not four. It's not like that. So it's one stream of air. So once the student can get an easy note on the head joint, the next thing is we'll take the body. We're not going to do the whole flute. We'll take the body and put it together. Actually, we will. Now, when you put the head joint into the flute, you align the tone hole right here with this first key. And in fact, you know what? I'll tell you what, if you want to do this, I'll give you Skype lessons. I mean, we can hook up on Skype. I can teach you to play flute. I guarantee it. I mean, if that's something you want to do. Anyway, so you put the flute together. When you put the flute together, you hold it on places where you can't affect the keys, and you always gently twist. You never jam it in. So if it doesn't go in easily, we have to clean it and make sure that works. So the head joint's on. Now the foot joint, I twist on the same way. I'm very careful not to put pressure on the keys. Twist that on, and I twist it so this little knob here, and this is too much information, but what the heck? It's free. So it goes right there. Now, next thing with my students, I don't even worry about their hands. I go, hold the flute any way you want to. Now can you get this? And all I'm doing there is exactly the same thing I did with my finger. I'm blowing down to get the low note, then I'm directing the air just a little bit up to get the higher note. Now, what I'm going through here sometimes takes kids a month, and sometimes it takes kids, a day. I mean, you learn at whatever speed you're at. So for some people, this is easy. For some people, it's harder. Now, when you hold the flute, we're going to get the left hand straightened out first. You're going to have a little bit of pressure on your lip, on your chin and your lip from the flute here, pushing this way, and your left hand is going to be like the C hook. See, it's a big C. I haven't got internet figured out yet. The claw. Anyway, so it goes around the flute, and the C. So the flute on the left hand rests right about here in your hand. You see it right about here, right there. So it rests right here, and it goes with the thumb. So the first thing you do, you don't worry about the right hand. The first thing you do is you press one key down in the thumb, and you get a B. Now to change the octaves, I change the airstream. It's that simple. And bear in mind, this is a good flute, and I'm a decent player, so the tones you get aren't going to be quite like this in the beginning. But I've been playing 6 years, and I've been putting like an hour a day into it, so it's possible to get pretty good pretty fast if you're willing to work. Now, at this point with a student, I typically have them put the right thumb where it belongs, and now you have the 4 points of balance. You're holding the flute with one against your mouth, two, the C with the left hand, three is your right thumb, and four is your right pinky on the E flat key. So that's the 4 points of balance. So you should be able to play the open notes called a C sharp. You should be able to play that and hold the flute with the 4 points of balance. That's the next thing. So the two hardest things for beginners to get, the two hurdles, and I've done a lot of beginning flute classes. The first hurdle is you've got to be able to produce a tone on the flute. So if you're having trouble with it all over the place, you have to go back to the head joint. And once you get the tone, it's there. You just have to find it. So that's the first battle. The second big battle is balancing the flute. Some people have a real hard time figuring out how to do their fingers. Actually, you're better off with a face-to-face teacher for some of this stuff because they can move your hand and move you around. But if you want to try Skype, the price is right. What the heck? I'd be happy to do it. So once you got it all together, the next thing I do with students is tell them I got a bag, BAG, and I fed the dog, FED. So bag and fed. So BAG. Now, even with just those three notes, there's many things you can go. Now you add the C, which is opening your thumb. That gives you a bunch of possibilities. Now you add the right hand, so you got bag, B-A-G, and I fed the dog, F-E-D, and low C. I'll tell you what, I have learned trumpet, I've learned saxophone, I've learned a little trombone, I've learned a little bit of strings when I did music education. I've learned clarinet, and now I've learned flute. And for me, the quickest learning curve was flute. I picked this, I mean, sax was pretty quick for me. I went from nothing to a pro in about 5 years. I went from halfway through college to graduating, and then I was playing with Bob Cuban's band in St. Louis, and I was doing some good gigs. But on flute, I'm convinced if I had been playing flute way back in grade school and college and whatever, I probably would have gone professionally and played and stayed professionally flute. I think I would have been really good really young. So if you're willing to put the time into it, your progression can be very fast, very high. And you don't have to play like, you can play classical music, which I do just for training, but I spent a whole bunch of time going. I mean, I love old rock. I love the old '60s rock and roll. I just how about name this tune? Uh, That's just from playing it once. I go to YouTube and I play it a couple times, play with it, and then I try and remember it because I have a guitar player that's amazing at one of the convalescent hospitals, and I won't even tell him what I'm doing. I'll just start going. And the third bar, he's there. I mean, he just knows what I'm doing. He knows the chords. He's amazing. So I've got a whole bunch of songs I'm working on. Look Out, Here Comes Tomorrow by the Monkees. Time Won't Let Me. I can't remember that song. What other? Don't You Care. Buckingham's. Tell her no, 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 no. And I'm doing a Do You Wanna Dance? And that's in G. I'll tell you a secret on flute too. Upgrades make a huge difference. I played a student flute for a while, then I bought a decent flute for about 1,000, and then I bought a head joint for that flute, and that ran about 600. So I had 1,600 into that flute, and then I played another flute a couple of years later that was a significant upgrade, and I paid about 3,200 for that, and got another head joint for that, and then I played this Dazau flute about 3 weeks ago at a music store in Carmichael, California. And I just played three notes and I go, Keith, that's the best you've ever sounded. And it was like 2,800 marked down to 24. So I said, get me out of the door for 2,000. They go, fine. So I did it. So I got it and I knew about head joints. So I just trialed 5 head joints from Carol Nussbaum Music in Texas, and I had help. I've taken online Skype lessons from a gal up in Seattle, and I took face-to-face lessons for about 3 years in Napa. So it's nice, and I have a teacher now in Los Angeles who's a studio player, so he's had me play all these jazz things, and he's fantastic. He's like He's the guy that recorded the flute solo on that Anchorman movie, if you remember that, with Will Ferrell, where he's walking around playing the flute. Well, he's the guy in the studio. This my teacher is the guy in the studio that played that solo. Anyway, um, so I knew after having bought this flute about head joints, and I tried a bunch, and I used my online teacher because I use better ears than mine to try and figure this out. Just like if you were going to buy something, I'd beg you, please let me hear it first or someone else to make sure you're making the right choice. So anyway, I had my teacher listen to it. She goes, that head joint's a big upgrade for your sound. Now, just to show you something here, I picked this up a few weeks ago in San Francisco. This is a Roger Young wooden head joint, and I played every head joint they had down at the Magic at the Flute World in San Francisco, and then I played this one. And I'm going through these songs fast. I wouldn't play them this way normally. Anyway, that's great. But then I compared it to this head I just bought, and it's amazing the difference in tones. This has a depth, and I'm not sure it comes across on the recording. It's pretty, it's rounded, it has a depth, it has some nice overtones waving in there I can hear. Uh, Plus, it's loud, and that's important because I play on mic in a lot of situations, and if it's not loud, the mic can't pick it up. So, anyway, this is 18 minutes. I didn't want it to be too long. I wish you and your family the best with all this virus going on. And I tell you what, if I didn't have, something to practice every day, I'd probably be batting my head against a wall, like being worried about everything. But I have stuff to work on. Music touches so many things. I mean, you're using cardiovascular, you're blowing air for 2 hours or an hour and a half or however long you practice. That is good for your body. The second thing you're doing is you're working your digits, your fingers, along with your breath control that burns new neurons in your head. Playing a musical instrument is almost the equivalent of learning a new language as far as your brain's concerned, and that's really good for your memory and good for everything else. Third thing is you start memorizing songs and forms, and like you memorize ba da 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 Red River Valley ba da 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 da. Well, that's using part of your brain you don't normally use. Then the last part is you're actually producing something that's beautiful. I mean, for me, when like there's times I'm playing flute, I'm going, I hear that and I start thinking, that's really pretty. I wonder who's playing that song. I forget that I'm playing the music. Oh, and then I screw it up and I go back to it. But I mean, this is added so much. Flute has pushed my sax out of the picture. I'm playing flute an hour a day and squeezing sax in for a half an hour, and I really should be doing the other way around since I make all my money playing saxophone at the wineries. But I see flute being a longer future for me than sax, and that's why I'm doing it. Anyway, if you've listened to this whole thing, wonderful. I hope this is beneficial for you. Email me any questions you have. Okay, be well. Take care.